All right, here are my pinto beans. I keep them in an airtight container. And I have a little middle scoop in there that I got from, I think, IKEA. And a heaping scoop is about a cup of for measuring. So I used, I believe it was 4 scoops of beans. And before you rinse them off, you want to sift through them and pull out little rocks and icky looking beans and things like that. And then you want to put them in a strainer, rinse them off with cold water. And while you're rinsing, you want to start boiling some water. I have mine up on high. So you just want to rinse through with your hands and get all the dirt off of the beans. Wash it really thoroughly, really nicely. And if you can, kind of sift through some more and make sure that you got all of the debris out of it. Once it's all strained out and cleaned out, then you dump it all in your pot. And I start with salt and pepper, and I'll have the measurements down below because I always eyeball. So I'll have the measurements down below because I have to really pay attention to give you the right measurements. So I'm going to do some garlic powder. Adobo, it's like seasoning salt, but adobo has a couple other different elements in there. It's not just regular seasoned salt. It probably has some chili powder and things like that. I'm using some onion powder as well, and some celery salt. Gives it tons of flavor. And I did a little dash of cumin. So stir that all up, and then you put the lid on it, let it start to boil. Now these are some of the best savory beans that I know how to make, and it just took me just trying different things. So one of the things that I do is I'm going to use a pork shoulder, and here is my beautiful pork shoulder. It's a little one. I can't even remember the weight, but it's about the size of like a little Nerf football. So I just cut it up and put it in the pot. Now I'm going to dice up some garlic and chop up probably maybe a medium-sized onion, just diced up. And here it is, and I like to do it all by hand. I don't use a chopper for this or anything. That's just old school. So you want to get a pan and have it oiled up. Not a whole lot, but get it hot. And you want to dump your onions and your garlic in the pan and just get it going. You want to check your pot. When you start seeing that it's boiling up, you want to go in and start stirring it. And you want to be vigilant and watch it, okay? Because it can start spewing over. And I'm going to add a little bit more water in there because beans take a lot of water. And it'll start to evaporate and get lower and lower leveled. So yeah, it needs to start to reboil. So you want to go back to your onions and make sure that your garlic does not burn, because if you burn some of that garlic, it's going to get super bitter. It tastes gross and you're going to just mess that up. So keep a watch for it. Make sure that it doesn't burn. I have it on about medium to high heat, and I turn it down if I feel like it's a little too hot. So now it's about ready here, and I'm just going to loosen it up here and then toss it. And it's starting to get that color and starting to get a little translucent. And that's what you want, because all the flavors are coming out here. And I'm going to use some beef broth, and I think I used about a cup of beef broth. I think I'm using Swanson brand. So you just kind of want to get it to where all the bits are off of the bottom of the pan. Oh, it just tastes so good, and it gives such the best flavor for your beans. Just a dash of salt and a dash of pepper. Just let it marinate just a little bit. I let it simmer for probably, I don't know, 2-3 minutes. There's the pepper. Once it's all nice and stirred, then you can turn it off, and then we're going to dump it in our pot of beans. All right. Now the beans are starting to boil again after I added that water. And now all the garlic and onions go in the pot. There's a little bit left, so I'm just going to put just a little bit more, just a couple of tablespoons of the beef broth in Just loosen up the last bits of onions and garlic and dump it in the pan. Oh, it just tastes so good. Now let it do its thing. It should cook for about 1.5 to 2 hours more. Be sure to check your beans every 20 minutes and stir it when you do. Now you see the freckles on the beans? That means that it's not quite done. You want to cook it until there's no freckles on the skin of the beans. Even though some of them are breaking and some of them are ready, they're still not. The ones with the freckles, they're not really ready. So you want to cook those completely out. But you can see the juice is looking perfect, the meat is cooking down, and we just got to get the rest of the freckles cooked. And just to give you a tip, this is what the meat is starting to do. It's already been cooking for about an hour. It's starting to break up, and that's just perfect because you want it to fall apart. So it's looking pretty good. I still have it on actually I turned it down to like a medium. So 2 hours and about 20 minutes or so later, and they are done. And sorry, but I turned my phone sideways and I stretched the video, so it's a little lopsided. I'm so sorry about this, you guys. But anyways, just wanted to show you what the beans are looking like. Hopefully you can see it. See, the pork is pretty much shredding apart. And then the beans, all the freckles are cooked out. It's completely tanned and beautiful. And you do want to taste it at this point. You could have tasted it when there's still a little bit of freckles on them too, just so that you can make sure that there's enough beans and, enough salt in it and that it's seasoned well. So if you want to add some more seasonings at this point, you still can. So what I did is I just tried to break some more of the meat apart and turned it off and let it cool down. And once it cools down enough, then I can store some of it in my freezer for dinners, and I just pull one out of the freezer for whenever I want to eat some beans with some dinner, and I have that. It's not a bad way to just put some beans away. So these are my Tupperwares that I use, or my Ziplocs, and I think that's an IKEA brand, and I do have a ladle that I use, and those measure for about a cup in size. So I do about 3 full scoops of the beans, and then I put some juice to top off the containers, and then there they are. They're all ready to go in the freezer. So I have 4 of them now, and that's enough for 4 dinners. 4 cups of beans, and there we are. And that's how you make the beans. Well, that's how I make my beans anyways. Super savory, really good for any kind of meal almost. So, oh yes, they're so good with eggs and bacon for breakfast or with any kind of dinner. And you can even make some chili beans with these too and store it as well. So, all right, you guys, thanks for watching. She knows I'm going to give her something, so I have a little piece of pork here from my beans. No, you have to say please. Sit down. Sit. Sit down. No, no, no. Sit. Say please. Say please. Good girl. One more time. Say please. One more time. Okay, good girl. That's my good dog. Yeah, she loves it. And there you go. Just start warming it up, and you can use a fork to just start smashing it, or a potato masher. And I just did about 1.5 cups, so I don't have very much in my pan. So I'm just going to do this by hand and use my potato masher. If I have a lot more, like 2 or 3 cups, I will use my hand blender and just chop it up like that. So you just, as you're warming it up, again, you just mash it and mash it and mash it, and it gets thicker and thicker and less clumpy, and the water evaporates, and that's why it gets thicker. But if it gets too thick, you can add a little bit of water into it, and you'll notice that it'll just get more pasty. And this is one that I didn't do a whole lot of pork. I think I did ham hocks in this pot, so that's why there's not a lot of pork in there. But it's so good. Thanks, you guys.